Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on how the sector can become more digitally confident and inclusive. I'm Martin Hilditch, and today's event, sponsored by Hyperoptic, obviously comes at the end of a 6-month period in which our collective online behaviour has radically changed. Obviously, the world in which we find ourselves raises all kinds of questions for social landlords, from the way they do business to the way they interact with tenants and residents. Clearly, there are issues such as increased home working and what that might mean for businesses in the longer term. I was speaking to one landlord recently who saw a permanent shift to flexible working patterns as critical to their long-term success. Frankly, they thought that if they didn't change, they would no longer be able to attract the best talent. Externally, there are challenges as well as opportunities. As the ONS put it in its report exploring the UK's digital divide last year, technological change means that digital skills are increasingly important for connecting with others, accessing information and services, and meeting the changing demands of the workplace and the economy. Its research pointed out that while the number of adults who have either never used the internet or have not used it in the last 3 months is obviously decreasing, in 2018 there were still 5.3 million adults in the UK, 10% of the population in this situation. There were significant regional variations in some of those exclusion figures, and unsurprisingly perhaps, over half of adult internet non-users were over 75 years of age. That was in 2018. So all of that raises plenty of questions for landlords who have moved and are moving services and contact with tenants online for issues such as applying for training and jobs, and also in terms of isolation and mental health. So there's a huge amount for us to get our teeth stuck into today and debate. To give us some insight into what the future will hold and how best to prepare for that, we've got an absolutely fab panel lined up for you today. We'll be hearing from Cathy Valdez, Managing Director with Digital Unite, James Williams, Head of Social Impact with HACT, James Prowse, Key Account Manager with Hyperoptic, and Debbie Truss-Dickinson, Chief Transformation Officer with Halton Housing. Before we start, just a quick reminder that there's a question and answer box on your screen, so please do use that throughout. We've already got questions coming in on it, so thanks very much for that, but this is your opportunity to get the answers that will help you do your jobs better and prepare for the future. So do use that Q&A box to make sure you get the answers that you want today. So yeah, just keep those questions coming in throughout, and I'll pick up on as many as possible in the discussion that follows the Q&A. Right, before we kick things off, I believe we've got a quick poll lined up. So yeah, if we can just put that poll live. So the poll question: does your organisation have a plan for the 2025 goal of gigabyte capable connectivity, put my teeth in, across your community? So yeah. That's the poll that should be up now. It's not flashing up on my screen, so I'm going to fly blind for a second here, but hopefully that poll is up for everybody else. Yeah, I'll just give you a few more seconds to respond. And yeah, if we can have the answers up now, that would be great. Again, I'm flying slightly blind, so the team will tell me what the answers are in the chat box. But yeah, that's just to get a bit of a feel for where you are in the room this morning. So yeah, thanks very much for that. And I'll get those results sent through to me, and I'll report back to you after the presentations. Anyway, that is more than enough for me. Just a reminder to keep that Q&A box active, and we'll get to as many questions as possible for the presentations. But for now, that's more than enough for me. Cathy, it's over to you.
Great, thank you, Martin. Hello, my name's Cathy Valdez. I'm from Digital Unite, and I'm delighted to be on this webinar. Probably slightly also delighted not to have to travel and stood on a freezing damp platform to speak to everybody as well. So, let's do my little slide button. So, Digital Unite has been around for 25 years, and we are still here because digital skills is still an issue, and it's an issue that's related to all sorts of different sorts of exclusion. Could be low education, financial, age, disability, all of the things that we kind of know that you touched on already. And the way that we now solve that problem is with a champion model, a digital champion model, and we have really focused on that for the last 5 years. Why digital champions? Because it works and because it benefits the organisations, it benefits the digital champions who like being upskilled, like helping people, and it's the only way really to help people with skills at scale in their communities with people that they trust and they know, and everyone kind of wins, which is really good. So at the heart of what we do, we have our Digital Champions Network, and we provide support and resources and training and all sorts of other bells and whistles for both digital champions working with different cohorts in different settings, but we also provide a lot of support and training for organisations running programmes. And we know that the organisations need help with planning and ideas and key messages and comms and all that. And we know that digital champions love learning about how to reach different types of groups of learners. So what's happened in COVID? So in some sense, everything's changed, and in another sense, nothing's changed. So digital skills have come right up the agenda because suddenly organisations who are thinking, well, at some point everybody will just creep online and we'll get there when we get there. Now it's like we need to be able to make sure that people are accessing all of the services, all of the advice, all of the social connections that they can by using digital means. So it's changed that, but it hasn't changed the fact that people need very tailored support, that you need to think very carefully about the people that you're trying to connect to, what are the right messages for them, who are the best people to try and help them, who are the people who are currently in touch with them. So there's some sense where it's changed, of course, but there are some things that are still the same, and the urgency has just increased. So we've been talking to some of our champions who've been giving remote support. We've created a set of guides, and those are free to link to on our website, so they're worth having a good look at. And we've been talking to some of the champions, and we're trying to understand what the challenges are. And of course, it's harder to help somebody over the phone. It's harder when you're not sitting next to somebody. So you just need a bit more patience, and you need to be perhaps a bit more realistic about what you might achieve. But the good thing is that motivation, as I mentioned, is less of a barrier. Oh, my slides are going all by themselves there. That motivation is less of a barrier, and people are, they realise they do want to see their grandchildren, or they do want to be able to access health services online. But they still want that very tailored approach. They want to know the things that they want to know. They don't want to standardise training, and they don't want to necessarily know about government services as the first thing. And they also need quite reliable broadband in which to do it. So in the old days, pre-COVID, people maybe would go to the library, go to a community centre, and they would use that Wi-Fi and broadband. So a lot of people have the kit, they've been given it by their well-meaning relatives, grandchildren, but they don't have the Wi-Fi that they need at home. So understanding who those people are and how you might help them, I think, is really important. So from the organisations who are our members, which is like housing associations or charities, local authorities, what we're trying to learn that where they're going with this, what do they need from us, and what are they trying to do themselves. And we can see that going forward that remote digital skill support will be part of a blended approach. I don't think we're ever going to go back sort of to hundreds of people rammed in a library somewhere having lessons. I think it's always going to be that sort of mix of, come for one session, learn how to get your email address, learn how to use Zoom, and then future sessions might be held remotely. So those kind of things. And building partnerships together, finding the people that need the help is really always critical. And some organisations have said things like Meals on Wheels, connecting with their local COVID-19 groups. And we've had requests from all sorts of people for the training, from people running ballet classes online to art classes for older people. So it's just kind of everywhere, really, which is really been quite interesting for us. Obviously, safeguarding when you're accessing somebody else's screen, and whether you're just doing a one-to-one session with somebody, is a growing concern. And pulling together the best practice for all of that is something that we're looking at Digital Unite, because people often are quite vulnerable, and we want to make sure that everything's absolutely as it should be. And again, data poverty, people not having enough data to do the things they want to do. And we know that people who are just going online for the first time, they like being able to stream movies and that kind of thing, just like we all do. And so understanding the data needs for those kind of things is quite critical. So I've just pulled a little case study because we've worked with Clarion Futures, who are a housing provider that you've probably all heard of. And we've worked with them for about 5 years, and we have a large cohort of digital champions, and we're quite heavily involved in their project. We have our own project coordinators who support their digital inclusion officers and all the great work that they do. And I think the reason that I've pulled them out is because we've been able to really get to grips with what are the best way of supporting the champions through the lockdown and then out the other side into really useful activity. And so we've done a kind of a sort of a summer of supercharged engagement. We've had some sort of coffee mornings, webinars, we've done some training. We've thought about different pathways for learners in this new sort of new normal that we're going into. And what's interesting is that most of them are keen to get back to face-to-face training as soon as they can, even though they know it will look slightly different. So it's definitely been worth the investment of time to stay in touch with those, to understand a bit more about the champions, to build some more personal relationships going forward. So sort of coming to the end now, but really wanted to focus on that partnership working. We know Hyperoptic quite well. We also do quite a lot of work with Citizens Online and that kind of the connectivity with Citizens Online, who are very great at the mapping and understanding exactly what your problems are in your communities and coming up with a bit of a plan, an action plan for you. And then Digital Champions Network, if that's the right solution for you, then we can do a lot of work that sort of all joins up. But getting to know your communities, what are the organisations who you maybe could work with. And from a digital champion perspective, we always say that if you can train the people who are already interacting with the people that you'd like to support as a digital champion, as just kind of an add-on to what they're currently doing, it's a nice piece of upskilling for them, but also you haven't got to do that kind of the matching piece because there's already that connection and that relationship. So I just wanted to flag another successful collaboration that we've just finished this year, which was with One Digital, where we did work across a number of different organisations across the whole of the UK. And it wasn't just these organisations. We worked with, in fact, between us all, 3,900 organisations, from tiny little church halls and communities to bigger charities. And it was a really effective programme that had really quality interventions. So rather than just a bums on seats numbers game, it was a real quality interventions by digital champions. So I just wanted to show that when the sector comes together, we can do some great things together. And that's it from me.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Debbie. Lots Kathy, sorry, lots to pick up on, lots to get our teeth stuck into. Yeah, just a reminder to everybody tuning in, we've got loads of questions coming in already. So clearly provoking some thoughts there. And we'll be hearing from both James's and Debbie in a few minutes' time. But just a reminder, keep those questions coming in using the Q&A box. So yeah, thanks, Kathy. James Williams, I will now hand over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Martin, and thank you, Kathy. Really interesting to hear the kind of things you've been getting on with. Just to introduce myself, I work for Halton Housing Association Charitable Trust. My job's head of social impact. So my main interest really is trying to help organisations to understand the difference that they're making, how to do it better, and how you can put that information to good use to influence your stakeholders, and also to make your case in your organisations about the importance of issues such as digital connectivity and digital inclusion. So great that I could be here today. I'll just go through just go through my slides to start with, and I think information is and social impact information really plays a crucial role in this agenda, along with lots of other agendas as well, when you're working with tenants in communities. It should be used to improve your outcomes, really. For me, that's the most important thing. Any information you collect, any data you collect, any data you use should have an end use, and there's a whole range of ways that organisations can do that, and I'll touch on those in a minute. And I'm very aware of, working in a housing association as I used to for a long time, the pressure on resources, on people's time, and how can you make your case? And social impact information is a really good way of making your case to the organisation, and also help them to make the investment decisions which this agenda really deserves. There's needs in all communities, particularly in social housing communities, and with certain age groups, as Martin said at the start, people with disabilities, people on benefits, and how can you make your case to make sure that the importance of digital skills is taken into account when the organisation's making budgetary and decisions about recruitment? So that's where I really see the role of social impact information is to help organisations do all those things. I just wanted to flag up this slide here. It kind of really surprised me, I have to say, when I looked at the difference in different parts of the country on how digitally skilled people were, or how confident they were. This particular slide just pulls out some geographical differences on a number of different categories, so internet user classifications. And whilst it's a couple of years old now, it still I'm sure has a lot to offer us. The main category I wanted to just talk about a little bit was the third column from the left, which you might just be able to make out. It says e-withdrawn. And I looked at some of the variations in this, and the English average, but this data is available for Scotland and Wales as well. But the English average is 8.8% of people who you might classify as e-withdrawn. And but if you look around the country, I just looked at where the highest and the lowest percentages of people were. Cambridge reporting no percent of people who were withdrawn. I don't know if there's any people here that work in Cambridge, but that's what that data says. But the highest was Hull, Kingston upon Hull, and that was 42.8%, with some of the other big cities, for example Birmingham, well above the national average. So to me, that was quite a surprise. I have to say that a major city in the country was even a couple of years ago reporting that kind of figure, and it was so different from somewhere like Cambridge, for example. Somebody who's e-withdrawn is likely to be in social housing. They will have low levels of engagement with the internet, or they might have access but they don't engage. And they've got a very low level rate of engagement, particularly with seeking information and engagement with financial services, although that's not necessarily the case with online shopping, particularly on clothes, interestingly. So I think this data set really kind of adds to this information that we need really to start to target our programs and to target those effectively. And this information can be accessed at a very very local level, a low super output area level, which is around about 600 households. So but by accessing this report, you can actually start to see the local concentrations of particular issues. And then that can help you to decide how you take your offer forward and how you tailor your services in that particular locality. So just moving on a little bit as well. One of the initiatives which HAC runs is something called the Centre for Excellence for Community Investment. Digital inclusion work can take place across all parts of housing associations, but community investment is one of the areas where this work takes place. But I understand not the only. And there is a briefing note which was done, during the COVID, the first wave of COVID, anyway, in July, just to bring out some of the key issues around digital inclusion. This resource is available freely to anyone on our website, but again, it does show some interesting figures here. So if you are looking for a business case, or you're looking to demonstrate the impact of your work, social housing tenants and residents are certainly overrepresented in being digitally excluded in the UK, as are those on low wages, unemployed, people with disabilities, offenders and ex-offenders. Benefit claimants in particular have a lower digital engagement compared to the UK average, and those with registered disabilities as well. 33% I've never used the internet. All these figures come from reputable sources. They're all referenced on this briefing note, and as I say, can be accessed through the Centre for Excellence for Community Investment. Also, interestingly, given that Hyperoptic have been a key contact of mine over the last couple of years, and very interested in trying to address some of the issues around digital inclusion. Large concentrations of social housing are particularly vulnerable to a lack of infrastructure. James, the next presenter, will talk a little bit more about what Hyperoptic's doing in that field, but it's clearly something that is an issue, particularly for social housing communities. So just moving on a little bit, I think any organisation really needs to, and a lot of you may be doing this, really needs to kind of think about the outcomes, the activities and the impacts which digital services can make. And as I said, HAC's have worked with Hyperoptic for a couple of years now, and other organisations such as Digital Unite, looking at how what change you can make by investing in and carrying out activities which address digital exclusion. We used quite well-known techniques such as theory of change in order to identify activities, inputs, what outcomes we were looking for, and also the wider impacts which that can make. This slide here is available from Hyperoptic if you go looking on their website, and is included in a white paper we did with them, just looking at and the mapping that we did to identify how, in this case, Hyperoptic really can demonstrate outcomes and impacts through some of their activities, whether it's digital training, supporting people with employment, connections for community hubs, providing affordable connections for people as well, and some of the outcomes which you can expect from that. And as Kathy said earlier, digital skills are a common denominator for so many different things, for good health, for financial well-being, for social well-being, and employment as well. So kind of going through an exercise like that can really help an organisation to look at the outcomes they can expect, to look at the impacts they can expect, and to start to measure them, and start to make those outcomes a bit more explicit. Look at things like, well, where are we performing well? Where are we not performing well? Do we have the right skills? Have we put enough money into this? Do we need to do extra training for our staff? Do we need to change our approach? It can help you make that change really, and help you answer the next question in order to improve your services for your customers and communities. So just moving on, making a case for investment will be a real issue for some organisations. It's great to see, how many housing associations do support this agenda, though, as the Clarion example shows from Kathy. But I know there are an awful lot of others. But I know from experience that you have to make a case for time and money, and some of the work which HACT have on social return on investment and wellbeing valuation might help you do that. This is all freely available, and perhaps you're interested in encouraging people into their IT skills and training, helping them feel a part of the community, engage more with community groups, as well as helping them with their financial inclusion or benefit claims or employment opportunities. And you can actually model a return on the investment you might make in those things, and which can help you then to make your case, make your business case for future investment. So just moving on, just to mention again that there's a whole range of studies, good practice, and on the Centre for Excellence in Community Investment, which anyone can look at and download from across the UK. I understand there's a hunger really to learn more about digital inclusion, to share more information about digital inclusion, about what's working well, and to think about how that can be improved in the future. There's a whole range of reports here, which I'll just mention one that's on the site, and this was a program or initiative run by CHS Group called New Horizons, and they got Cambridge Centre for Housing and Planning Research to evaluate that. And I think what was that particular program, I think what was really interesting about this report is that, as well as it being relatively new, it really looked at the impacts on a number of indicators and issues such as financial and employment exclusion, talked about poverty, and really looked at digital skills in the context of trying to address those issues, as well as just a digital skills focus. So it did come up with some interesting findings, and of which one of them was obviously this issue just doesn't sit on its own, but relates to a lot of other indicators relating to poverty. And I'm also pleased to see that that report reported some really good success from a one-to-one coaching program of 20 hours, which helped a lot of the participants progress. That's it from me. Very interested to obviously, hopefully, answer some of your questions.
Fabulous. Thank you, James. There are loads of questions coming in. So yeah, do keep them flowing. Lots and lots of people sending through questions to the Q&A box, and I'll get through as many as possible after the presentations. All right. Speaking of which, I will move swiftly on. James, welcome, and it is over to you.
Hello. Thank you. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to talk a little bit about Hyperoptic and our offering to boost digital transformation and digital inclusion. I work with a team of 10 account managers who work with local authorities and social housing providers, housing associations and the like across the UK to bring digital infrastructure transformation to their homes and residents. And to tell you a little bit about Hyperoptic, we were a real first mover in the space of bringing gigabit digital infrastructure to the market in the UK. And we connected our first homes in 2011. We now pass more than 500,000 homes in the UK, from Edinburgh and Glasgow all the way to Brighton and Southampton on the south coast. And every one of those homes can order service from us and connect directly to our service. that covers at least 43 towns and cities in the UK. And across that platform for local authorities and housing associations, we have our service live in over 130,000 homes across the network. And we have already got agreements in the form of way leaves and installation agreements with providers to deliver at least another 120,000 homes over the coming year or so. So we're very fast growing, very fast moving, and we have a very wide reach to bring digital transformation to your portfolios. So the next slide is really about the context of COVID and the scenario that we found ourselves in since March. What you've got here is a picture of our network usage over the course of a 24-hour period. And my network colleagues tell me that their real focus is on where peaks of traffic usage are in the network. So each of these layers here is a particular service, so it might be Netflix or Facebook or eBay or whichever service is being streamed or used in our network, and they build up to a really big peak. Now, historically, because we're particularly residentially focused network, we'd have seen those peaks coming towards the 8-9 o'clock level in the day. What we really found during the impact of COVID was a massive growth in the peak itself. So the total amount of data usage went up very considerably. And what we also noticed was a very big shift to connectivity earlier in the day. People are using those services from earlier in the day and building up to that peak over a longer period of time. That means people using the service for working from home, entertaining the children, to stream TV, etc. The other thing that I'm told we're really interested in and causes palpitations to our network engineers is troughs. Now, normally troughs might mean a failure in the network or some sort of service issue. This slide is actually taken on a Thursday during the lockdown period, and what you will note is that around 8 o'clock there's a very considerable drop in internet usage on our network. And for those who are eagle-eyed, they'll have worked out that that was the period at which we were going outside to clap for heroes in the UK, and that you can see that that had a very dramatic impact on our network. Fortunately, we were a little prepared for that, and it didn't cause any alarm bells to my colleagues at the time. So I think that clearly demonstrates, and others have talked to, the real need to support people with the growth in demand for internet connectivity and a better quality of service. And the way to do that is to bring new infrastructure to your homes. The existing telephony infrastructure doesn't support the kind of connectivity that we have and that we can offer. So it does mean coming and installing to the buildings and bringing new network to those buildings. And so we've built a model that allows us to build a collaborative approach with housing associations and social housing landlords. And the real crux of that is to understand the departmental positioning. Who are the stakeholders in your organisation who need to be involved in this transformation? Because the impacts will be spread across your organisation. The provision of services and the benefits and the social benefit, etc., goes towards the residents and the housing side of the organisation. However, with us coming to install to buildings, there are physical things that need to be done on site. So we have to make sure that we have your asset management, your planned maintenance, capital works programs understood so that we can work within the constraints that are there. The other thing that we must do, and we have a real focus on, is keeping the residents at the heart of the offer. So communicating with residents about what we're doing, what the benefits are to them, caring for the buildings that we install to. People are very protective of their homes and the places where they live. They want to understand what's being done, what it's going to look like at the end of the day, and what the benefits are to them. And then the third pillar of our work is to make sure that we support community engagement, that we communicate with the existing tenant representation, tenant management organisations that might sit within your portfolio, etc., that we coordinate that work with those who are involved in your organisation with supporting residents and your customers across your base. So linking those things together, very snazzy. What we've also built is a team that are dedicated to supporting that infrastructure delivery. We are really experts in building network in an efficient and coordinated way to minimise the impact on you as an organisation, and put in place project management that coordinates and supports the delivery. And behind our project manager, we build something which we call the squad, and they will deliver the specific activities that are involved in delivering network to your homes. So the kind of leading person within that is the planner. This is a physical visit to the site to look at what the infrastructure is on the site, to prepare an installation proposal that will be agreed with you prior to us coming to site, so that everybody knows exactly what's going to go where and how it's going to be installed. Then we have a community officer who's going to be responsible for ensuring that we've maintained that community engagement piece that we talked about earlier. We'll attend meetings to explain what the interventions are going to be, what work's going to go on site, what our engineers look like, so that they can be identified, how we go about looking after our residents on site, protecting them and complying with any regulations and guidance, that particularly in these changing times around COVID. The third member in our squad is the area delivery manager. They're responsible for the teams who are going to do the installation, the actual engineers on site. So they'll have a number of teams that they coordinate and manage that, ensure that the materials are delivered on site correctly, that all of our welfare facilities are correct and used properly, and that the installation is carried out in accordance with the plan and the installation proposals. And then we have a site coordinator who sits in the background, but is responsible for making sure that the scheduling of visits to site, the scheduling of installations, the delivery of the network infrastructure is all dealt with in a coordinated fashion, so that we can keep to a very tight and clear program, and everybody knows what's going on. And then sitting behind them is all of the other resources that Hyperoptic have across customer services, the sales team, and client engagement, communications, and PR, etc., which is there to support that delivery. What we've recognised, and James from HACT has already alluded to, is recognised that just bringing gigabit connectivity and the advantages that that has for any individual user also brings with it a number of social and economic value advantages, which by working across a whole portfolio, we can draw together these and put together some additional benefits that support your aims as an organisation to bring social value and maximise the benefit of any interventions that are carried out. And that's really around three pillars. And the first one is around the affordable product scheme. So as we've already talked about, there are people who are digitally excluded for a number of different reasons, and often that may be to a degree financial exclusion. This scheme is designed to allow access to our standard products, so people get the quality of service that everybody gets at a reduced rate for a period of time, normally a 12-month contract, to allow them to get that boost onto using the internet and the advantages and benefits that brings, and so shift them into the digital space. We'd normally agree a number of homes that this would be available to, and we'd look to partner with you to help identify who would most benefit from this intervention. So it's about working with you to do that. In terms of digital inclusion, we work with Digital Unite and with Citizens Online to support a programme of digital inclusion activities and to understand the landscape of the interventions and the activities that are already going on within your organisation and your communities, because there's no point in us having a one-size-fits-all approach to this. It's different in different locations, as James has already pointed out, and it's different in different communities. And there's always that need to find specific issues that might attract somebody to make that shift into the digital space, whether that's talking to your children or being able to buy your groceries online and have those heavy bottles, etc., delivered to your home. In addition, because we're coming and bringing network to your community already, then we offer complementary connections. These might be to community facilities that are on site, tenant residence halls, potentially other facilities, community facilities that might be on site, and also to support your corporate connectivity needs. So it might be that you need to connect your buildings in this changing world to be able to sort building management systems, door entry system changes, CCTV and security, etc. So having that connectivity on site provides a range of new benefits and social advantages to an organisation, and we bring those on a complementary basis. So there's an enormous saving potentially to you for the provision of services that you have. And then really it's about recognising the value that these things bring, and working alongside HACT and Symmetrica Jacobs, we've developed a social value calculator tool which helps to identify what the impact of these interventions are going to be. And we try and build a picture when we work with you to engage with you on the number of homes that might be passed, number of community facilities, for example. So a limited number of simple data inputs can help generate a guide to the impact that this might have. So for example, Kathy was talking about digital champions. An embedded digital champion, according to our calculations, could have the equivalent of a £45,000 impact on the well-being of people that it supports across the network. And by delivering that in the community, using the community connections, that has an enormous impact. And across our deliveries so far in the UK, those 130,000 homes, we estimate that that's probably had an impact of around £15 million to the communities that we've provided those digital support to. So what we're looking to do is, and you can get, as we've already said, you can get access to the white paper that we prepared on that. I think there's a link on the webinar homepage, or if you search for Hyperoptic Social Value, you'll be able to find that and download that. And with some simple inputs, you can get an indicator from us as to what the potential impact of extending Hyperoptic across your network would be. Thank you. That's it from me.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, James. I'm going to move swiftly on because I know we're running over a little bit and I want to get through as many questions as possible. So Debbie, it's over to you.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Hi, I'm Debbie Truss-Dickinson. I'm the Chief Operations and Transformation Officer at Halton Housing. Really pleased to be here just to share a little bit of the experience that we've had at Halton and hopefully some practical building blocks for people who are just either starting out on their digital transformation or perhaps thinking about the next stages. So the first thing, just a little bit about Halton Housing. We own and manage around 7,000 homes across Runcorn, Widnes and across the Northwest. And for those that don't know us, we already have a pretty well-established digital offer and a very strong focus on innovation. But I think it's fair to say in the last 8 months or so, things really haven't stood still, and we can't stand still either. So we are already on with planning our next stage of our digital journey. And that's very briefly going to include an all-new website. We've completely revisited that, and we have done all the procurement and specifications through the lockdown period so that we're good to go early next year. We're replacing our customer portal and refreshing the customer app. We're also doing a virtual diagnostics trial, which is particularly relevant at the moment, I think, given how people are less comfortable with people being in their homes. Also exploring how we can use chatbots and artificial intelligence and what applications there might be for us there. And also exploring our innovation culture and developing that more across the whole business. We're quite fortunate in Halton in that we have pretty good connectivity already, but there's always more you can do, and we are enhancing our connectivity as well. And we're also looking at really how we can engage customers, I think, in this new COVID world, and what they'll be most comfortable with. And I don't think we can assume we know what will work for them, so we're asking what will work for them. So the next few slides are really just about some practical steps on some of the lessons that we've learned and some of the experiences we've had, which I hope just might be useful for people who are embarking on digital transformation. So the first piece is really around know your why, and that might seem really obvious in that it's out of necessity, but necessity is a really vague concept and it's not hugely helpful. So trying to refine that down to why are you doing it, and is it about the customer experience? Is it about digital or social inclusion? Perhaps it's about productivity, efficiency, and are you looking for that return on investment that James talked about earlier? Or perhaps you've got quite an advanced model and you just want to optimize new technology. But I think understanding what's driving you and what's your why provides a really useful framework, because when you want to make decisions further down the line in terms of your transformation and perhaps need to make some prioritization calls, really going back to why you're doing it is really helpful. We've certainly found that very helpful. So once you know why you're doing it, the next thing is really about defining your scope. And again, it can be as big or as small as you want it to be initially. If it's your first digital transformation, you may want to make it quite a small one, or you can make it very expansive. So is it about the sort of customer front end and the sort of transactional elements first? And that's perhaps where we started with digital first at Halton. And then to what extent do you want to extend that into operations? So that may be more simple, more straightforward elements of electronically sending out jobs to maintenance technicians. But how far back do you want to go in terms of, as I mentioned, virtual diagnostics, Internet of Things, sensors, and even to sort of data visualization for productivity. So there's quite a lot you can do in that space, and being clear what your scope is useful to do that up front. And then do you want to extend that to your colleagues' digital experience and perhaps even your stakeholders? And again, it could be all of the above, and that would be a pretty extensive program, wouldn't it? But this is really just to try and define what do you want to do, so you know why you're doing it and what you're going to do. So the next stage really is around the delivery and planning your roadmap. And I think really importantly is to really try and nail down the timeline and the vision. So it could be 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long, but from different when you get to the end of that period. What's it going to look like and what's it going to feel like for your business and for your customers? Budget to cover that timeline, and then add contingency, because it always costs more than you think it's going to cost. And then there's something around agreeing your priorities, and I think everybody's touched on connectivity because it's just so crucial. And whilst at Halton we have good connectivity, I have worked on digital projects where perhaps the connectivity isn't as good, and there can be quite a long lead time just to get those things set up. And then data, and again, I think, James, you touched on data. It's what do you want to collect, and what are you going to use it for? And have you got the capability in the organisation to do something useful with that in terms of customer insight? And then what are the implications for GDPR? Then customer needs. Are you doing what you want to do for your business, or is it in response to customer needs? And what are those needs, and what do you need to prioritise first? And then looking at your infrastructure and your applications priorities. So clarifying the requirements, next, and outcomes. And again, I think a couple of people have touched on the outcomes. What's going to be different as a result of doing this? It's not just about introducing a range of sort of front-end digital transactions. You need to really have in the back of your mind what the outcomes might look like, and then define the methodology for delivering that. And it doesn't have to be Prince 2 or Agile, it can be anything in between. We've devised our own methodology at Halton, which is a sort of a hybrid, if you like, but it at least gives people a framework to work within. And then creating a comprehensive programme delivery plan, because that might well throw up that actually in several months of the year you've got everything happening at once, and that just isn't practical. So you may need to tweak your ambitions or change your timelines. Comes with that is a really robust resource plan, and this is often forgotten, I think, with delivery. Making sure you've got the right people with the right skills at the right time to be able to do some of these things is absolutely crucial, and to plan for and plug any gaps. And then, of course, creating that customer engagement and communications plan. When and how are you going to be engaging people to make sure this is actually a product that people are going to use? And just lastly, some additional considerations just to think about. Touched on it briefly before around skills and capability. What sometimes happens, and we found this at Halton and I found it in other projects, that often you can want to bring in your really great people from the business, really skilled in their business area, but they may never have run a project before. So do you need to invest in some project management skills? Have they got the capacity to do it as well? Because sometimes they're given a project to do and have a full day job as well. So there is looking at the skills and capability, and we're supporting that through, we've created a programme management office that can support and help people through the disciplines of project management. Operational impact, so taking out some of those really good people to work on this will leave a gap, and it's how you plan to manage that and what the costs might be and what the implications might be for the rest of your business performance, and is that a hit you're prepared to take, or do you need to start backfilling? And change management, again, I think this has been touched on as well, absolutely crucial. It's not about just doing these changes, it's about doing change impact assessments. What does that mean for your customer and for your business? Because if you're going to fundamentally change the way you run parts of your operation, there will be some significant implications in terms of change. So don't underestimate that one. And I think legacy integration, having conversations early doors with your suppliers is really useful, just so you know if there are going to be any integration issues or lead times that you need to factor into your delivery. And finally, and perhaps controversially, choice. Again, I think it's been mentioned all the way through that there will perhaps be some people that just won't be able to or can't use digital. So how do you build in the telephony or the face-to-face contacts in terms of an omni-channel experience so it will feel consistent across all of the channels? And that's me, Martin. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Yeah, great presentations. And we've got some Q&As coming through, complementing them. So thank you to everybody who's got something out of those. We have lots of questions coming through as well, which I will move swiftly onto because I know we've gone over a bit there. So yeah, I'll just get through as many questions as possible. And we'll run over by 5 minutes as well, just to make sure we get some of those questions in. Kathy, it's been a while since we heard from you, so I'm going to move straight to you because there's lots of questions coming in directed at you. Question for you from Gavin from Hasto. What key elements are necessary to successfully establish a network of remote digital champions? And a good number of questions about digital champions. So I'll throw another into the mix, and sort of Wendy from Carbon. Who are the champions? Customers, colleagues, both? Yeah, a couple of questions on the digital champions for you, if that's okay, Kathy.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great to have some interest. And also to say, if anybody has any questions after this, they can just send me an email. We're always happy to talk to organisations about their programmes, whether they're a member or not, and what they're trying to do. So to have a successful digital champions programme, you need will within the organisation, buy-in from your management team. You need to think about the who are you trying to help and why you're trying to help them, and you need to think about the comms for recruiting your champions. and how you're going to reach your end learners and who those champions should be to reach those end learners. Then you've got your COVID level stuff about how you're going to make sure they've got kit and connectivity, and you need to also think about safeguarding and how you're making sure that you're protecting both the champion and the end learner. Okay. And what was the other question about champions? Was around.
Well, I'll throw in another one because there's another one that just come through as well. So, who are the champions? Customers, colleagues, or both?
Yeah.
And there's a question from Jennifer and Brent. Do you train champions to work with people who have sensory impairments? So, yeah, a couple of questions there.
Yeah, so we have around 19 courses on our Digital Champions Network, and they cover all sorts of things, including we've got 5 accessibility, so people with different sort of sensory impairments. We have like bite-sized courses and signposts to the best resources and guides and technology to help people. We have courses if you're helping somebody as a frontline staff person, if you're helping older people, if you're helping somebody manage their health online. And all of those courses have been made with subject matter experts, so Age UK for the older persons, AbilityNet for the accessibility courses, and NHS Digital for the health. So we have that range. And in terms of who can be the champion, the most exciting thing about this is anybody can be a champion. So we have organisations may have some of their staff members who are frontline staff who are interacting with people as champions. They may have some volunteers that are their residents. They may have external volunteers, and they may have people in other not customer facing roles who want to volunteer as champions. And all of those people can be champions.
Thanks very much. James Williams, I will come to you next if that's okay. And yeah, a couple of questions around some of the kind of e-withdrawn points you were making. There's a question from Nikki from Nottingham. Is there any way we can get local e-withdrawn data for our area? Another question, is there any research for Walsall? And then perhaps just a bit more detail. Somebody's asked, what does e-withdrawn mean? And I know we went into that a little bit, but if you can perhaps just elaborate, that would be good. So James, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Martin, and thanks for those questions. Yeah, there is data for Walsall, for Nottingham. There's a very quite a small scale as well, so you can actually find out what kind of percentage are e-withdrawn, for example, in those particular areas. I use something which I have in-house to zoom in and out. So if there were any particular neighbourhoods that people would want to look at, then please get in touch and I'll dig it out. So yes, it's across Britain, and yeah, I mean, just on e-withdrawn again, the definition which I was looking at earlier, it's people that don't have a lot of engagement with the internet. They've got the lowest rate of engagement with seeking information. Whatever that might be, jobs or, for example, and support with financial services. Although there is some engagement with some online shopping. So it's like I say, it's a GB data set. It's one that seemed to me to have a lot of credibility. It was run or collected by a number of well-known organisations, or I think funded by the Economic and Social Research Council. So yeah, it is publicly available, and if anyone wants to read up a bit more about it, then there'll be details on all the different categories that fall into the internet user classification. I think it's the second time they've done it. I think they've done it about in 2014, and I think this is the one I was looking at is more up to date.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I think that was a really thorough answer. I've got a question for the other James now, James Prowse, and this is from Nikki from Nottingham City Homes. We found that access to the internet isn't so much of an issue as sufficient data, especially when the whole family are at home and limited data has to be shared. So, I mean, again, obviously very, very relevant to the current set of circumstances and the ongoing circumstances we all find ourselves in. I would welcome some thoughts on how this could be or has been addressed. And obviously you mentioned that a little bit in your presentation as well. So, James, over to you.
Absolutely, and I think it's a very valid point. And whilst we talk about gigabit connectivity, there's no limit to the amount of data that a customer can use on any of our services. So the rates that we sell at are 50 megabits, 150 megabits, 500 megabits, and gigabit. But all of those are unlimited in the amounts of data that you can access and use across there. And because the speed and quality of our network is so good, we actually see probably about twice the rate of data usage that you might see over a typical other providers' network. So, yeah. Get online and use as much as you can and get the best value out of the connection that's available.
Fabulous. Thanks very much, Debbie. I'm going to move to you next, if that's okay. So, I won't mention his organisation just in case. Our organisation seems to focus mostly on age rather than income or network. Being the biggest factor on exclusion, so that kind of focus on those other factors. Any evidence that that's the right or the wrong approach? So that kind of focus largely on age in terms of exclusion. How does that kind of fit with what you're doing?
I wouldn't say that age is particularly prevalent as one of the. Sorry, there's a question around: are people excluded from certain age groups?
I think the question is that the organisation that he works for, when it comes to digital inclusion, focuses its attention largely on people's age rather than, say, income levels or network that they're on as being the kind of key factor. And is that kind of focusing largely on age when it comes to digital inclusion? Is that kind of where the focus should be, or should it be broader than that?
I would say it needs to be broader than that, because I don't think you can second guess people's preferences. I think years ago we might have thought anybody who was an older person wouldn't be online at all, and that just isn't the case anymore. I think there are some young people who equally may have difficulties. Just because they're young doesn't necessarily mean they're tech savvy and may need some support and some help. So I think from a personal perspective, I think it's everybody is the target. I certainly wouldn't be advocating targeting specific age groups.
I'm going to throw one more question. I think we're just running out of time, but a question from Scott. Hi, Scott. How have you found supporting tenants digitally excluded to get confident if you're unable to meet with them face to face? So the current set of circumstances, I guess it's a bit chicken and egg, isn't it? But if people are digitally excluded and it's more tricky to meet with them kind of currently, how do you kind of work through that process at the minute? Has your thinking changed at all due to the kind of current circumstances? So yeah, Debbie, straight back at you.
We've done a number of things, actually. It's surprising, for example, customer forums where had always been very traditionally face-to-face in a way in which you engage with people who perhaps weren't particularly digitally engaged, and they've gone online too. So I think there's a mix. There are some people that aren't engaged digitally, so we're using the phone and we are still doing face-to-face. And we do still have people coming to the building. So we're not excluding people. If they really aren't digitally included, then we do still have means in which we can communicate with people and engage with them.
So yeah, a bit of a mixed approach there. I'm really sorry, we are running out of time. We've got through a decent cross section of those questions there, I think, and obviously it was an offer to get in touch separately as well. So yeah, definitely take that up if you're tuning in and still got some questions left. It just remains for me to say thank you to our panel for some absolutely fantastic presentations. Like I say, the Q&A box was, there were several people saying what they got out of those presentations. So thank you very much to all our presenters. Thank you to all of you for tuning in, very much appreciated. And thank you for all the questions. Hopefully we've got through a good number of them. And also thank you to Hyperoptic, our sponsors. Thank you very much. Absolutely fascinating debate today, and a really important one for the sector to get right. So I hope we've helped get some answers for you today that you can take back to your own organisations. So yes, thank you all. Thank you for tuning in, and see you soon. Thank you very much.